It is 1/13/2025. Holy Buckeye. We made it to the championship game. Can't believe it. Listen, Notre Dame, Ohio State, we're going to break it down and talk about it. But we are here, ladies and gentlemen, Level Up College Football Podcast. Andy P, Sarah C in the building with your boy, Big G. We're going to talk a little bit of college football. Y'all, we thank all you guys that's rocking with us live on YouTube. Thank everybody rocking with us on the Fans First Sports Network. And I can't do this without my co-hosts, Andy and Sarah. Andy, what's crack-a-lackin'? What's going on with you, bro? Back in the building with the Level Up College Football Podcast. And like I said, holy Buckeye, we are here at the championship game, man. What's going on, man?
You know, it's crazy that we are finally doing the college, national championship preview show. It always sneaks up on you. The season just flies by, but these playoffs have been a lot of fun. These playoffs have been a really good time watching some of the best teams play. Thought both semifinal games were great, and we're going to get into that a little bit. So I'm hoping for one more great game, even if it's going to raise both of y'all's blood pressure just a little bit.
Facts. Sarah, back in the building, back with us. And I can clearly say to you, holy Buckeye, what's going on, Sarah? What's happening with you? What's crack-a-lackin', man?
Nothing much. I'm just so glad to be back with you guys. It's amazing to be able to talk about this all again. I am living on a high. And living in Pittsburgh, everyone's asking me all these questions about the Steelers. And I'm like, no, I got 1 for 2. I'm okay.
Yeah.
So...
The game on Friday definitely helped deal with the game on Saturday. We can say that without, being biased, because we talk all college football sports here. But that game on Saturday was grueling. But like you said, the high for Friday was just unbelievable, man. Hey, B-Dirt said, what's crack-a-lackin'? He said, which is worse, a 2-loss champ or a 1-loss champ that lost to Northern Illinois? Listen, the 2-loss champ is the better one. But B-Dirt, we'll get to that, man. And what's up after as you're talking to us in the live chat, man? Hey, listen, we're going to jump off. We're going to get the jump off going with the show right off the bat. We're going to do a recap of the Final Four. And this is something that we don't normally do on this format just because sometimes we don't have time allotted. But we have a time a little bit just to go into the breakdown of the Final Four games, giving a back analysis about talking about who was the MVP, what's the play that was going to stick out, and just your thoughts concerning the Final Four playoff. Sarah, I'm going to go to you first concerning Notre Dame and Penn State. What is your thoughts concerning the game? What did you like? Who was your MVP? What did you see concerning that game with Notre Dame and Penn State?
So I kind of picked 2 MVPs because I think that there were some MVPs on that losing squad. I think Penn State had one of the best defensive players out there in Abdul Carter, and I know he was dealing with that injury. But Singleton is like a legit running back, and I was extremely, extremely impressed by him. I think, and I just saw today they're both coming back, which I think is great for Penn State. My biggest thing, though, worry for Penn State, Franklin is going to be a little bit of a worry. Especially with his coaching versus Freeman, where Freeman just looks so much more confident, so much much more energy into his players and everything like that. But Aller looked bad, like really, really bad. And he's supposed to be this 5-star recruit, supposed to be, like they said, if he had this great game, he was going to end up going into the draft. So that gave me a lot of questions for what they're going to do with next year, because they seem to always be like, oh, we'll get the next one. The next quarterback, and they can't seem to find it. So, and they're going to be losing some of that defense in the draft and stuff like that, along with Carter. So that really made me think. I was extremely impressed by Notre Dame, their resilience, the way that they came back. I think that they went in for 60 and they played 60, and that really, really, really impressed me. And I think that has a lot to do with coaching. And I think that in the end, I think that's what really kind of put the nail in the coffin for one side versus the other. But it was an extremely entertaining game. I had a lot of fun watching it. I was impressed by both, but I think Notre Dame definitely came out the winner because they were the better team in the end.
Facts. I'm feeling it. Andy, man, your thoughts concerning Notre Dame and Penn State, man, and your MVPs, who you really thought like, man, listen, they played their hearts out, man. They deserve to get a look, man.
Yeah, I think one of the obvious, shout outs on Penn State is Tyler Warren. We talked about a Big G in the preview show. Notre Dame shuts down tight ends better than anybody in the country. And Penn State said, we don't care. We're still going to make Tyler Warren the weapon in this game. And even though his numbers weren't eye popping, Notre Dame's linebackers, which might be the best linebacking group in the country this season, had a lot of trouble tracking him out of the backfield. He had more speed. He had more strength than anybody that wasn't named Abdul Carter, who, again, Herculean effort by Abdul Carter to even play in this game. But my MVP is actually on the Notre Dame side, and it's Jaden Greathouse. And it was Notre Dame needed someone who wasn't a running back to step up and just catch passes. And Greathouse was doing a fantastic job of not just getting open, but the run after the catch, making sure that he was consistently getting into the open field. I thought that was what Riley Leonard needed in the second half, because that first half, it was just really apparent Notre Dame could not find a receiver down the field, and Penn State was able to capitalize with a lot more simple protections and just pin their ears back and rush the passer. Once Greenhouse started opening things out, once that was able to open up the rest of the secondary, Penn State had to start getting tricky with its coverages. It had to start getting tricky with its pass rushes. That's when you were allowing Riley Leonard to do all those rollout games that make him so dangerous out of the backfield there as a quarterback. So, shouts to Penn State, who won that first half. But, Sarah, you kind of mentioned it with James Franklin. He was so aggressive in his play calling in every single situation until the second quarter of this game. Like, they should have gone for it. I think that they had a couple of opportunities to go for a touchdown instead of kicking a field goal in the second quarter and the third quarter of this game. That really flips this entire game on its head if they just go for it, because Penn State or Notre Dame offensively was not moving the ball. I'd much rather go for the extra 4 points or pin Notre Dame back and get the ball back in plus field position, rather than do what they did, which was, take the 3 points and then just hand the ball back to Notre Dame like nothing happened. So Franklin's aggressiveness, I think, didn't pay off in this game because he just was inconsistent with it. And now, I don't know if you all saw, but that coaching staff's already starting to get decimated again. Tom Allen is going to be leaving Notre Dame or leaving Penn State to take the same job at Clemson. Now, knowing what we know about Clemson and defensive coordinators, he's probably getting a nice, healthy pay bump with that. But Penn State not being able to retain a really successful defensive coordinator, not exactly what you want when you just made the Final Four.
Yeah. Facts. Hey, listen, man. Great points. Y'all talked about players, but I got to go to an MVP that didn't play. I think Marcus Freeman is the MVP of the college football playoff in totality. I'm not just going to say players on the field and all whatever else. Marcus Freeman has ignited a Notre Dame team that at best at often years was mediocre. Marcus Freeman has straightened the ship, headed them in the right direction, and has stirred up the winner inside of each one of those players. And to be quite honest, I think Marcus Freeman outcoached James Franklin in the Final Four because he was willing to take the vertical shots where Drew Aller might not have been willing to take them, but he couldn't complete them, and James Franklin knew it. So how do you dial it up when you know that you don't have a vertical threat on the outside of the field? So that makes you a one-dimensional team. Notre Dame came into the game thinking that they was a one-dimensional team, and look, lo and behold, he starts going vertical. And the minute he goes vertical, Notre Dame wins the game. Because I'm going to just be honest, I thought the game was over with. When Penn State went down there and scored and Singleton scored, I was like, it's over. There's no way in the world Notre Dame's coming back off of this because they can't attack vertically. And what did they do? Attack vertically with the wide receiver, which I was like, oh, my God. He beat him one time, and the DB just fell down, and the other time he just flat out cooked him. And I was like, this is what they've been waiting to see in Notre Dame for a long time. So back to the wall, Marcus Freeman had to do it, where backs to the wall, James Franklin didn't. And so maybe that's the reason why I choose him as an MVP, because the players are the players. Conversely, switching gears, Ohio State versus Texas. This is a whole different ball game as far as MVP type player, MVP type game, MVP this and that on the field. Andy, your thoughts concerning Ohio State versus Texas in the semifinals in the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, I'm going to let you all say all the nice things about Ohio State. I'll talk a little bit of nice about Texas here real quick. I think that we are going to have to admit that Texas is going to be the king of the SEC for the next few years, because at the end of the day, they lost their entire defensive front, completely restocked the cupboard, and we're getting consistent pressures against a good banged up offensive line, but still very good offensive line with 4-man pressures. And that's what kept Texas in this game. Throw in Sark's ability to just scheme up a game plan that kept the ball in Quinn Ewers' hands, really limited the opportunities for mistakes. He's about to have Arch Manning for 2 years now. Oof. If they can continue to restock defense like this, Texas is the best team in the SEC. They're the best program in the SEC right now. And this is, I feel like they're just going to be a lock to make the Final 8 every single year for as long as this defensive recruiting continues. On the flip side, one of the interesting things of this game for Ohio State was I didn't love the defense against Texas. I know that they were really concerned about, Ewers taking the top off here. And Sark just said, fine, I'll throw screen passes on you all day. I'll take those 3 to 5 yards every single time. And it really wasn't until the Ohio State offense made Texas abandon that game plan that we really saw that get shaken up. And again, it was Ohio State's defense that won this game, not the Ohio State offense, because Texas was doing a really solid job and really the only opponent since Michigan that we've seen limit this absolute Death Star of an offense. So if you're Notre Dame, you're watching that footage and you're going, there's stuff here that we can do. A lot of it's going to predicate on getting pressure with 4 guys, which obviously easier said than done. But Texas showed that there is a way to slow down Jeremiah Smith. And it's basically, look, if he's going past 5 yards, he's going to have 2 guys on him at all times. It's going to be interesting to see that cat and mouse game now that someone has finally put film on how to slow him down. But overall, look, Ohio State has been the best team in the tournament so far. They showed it again, double-digit win over the SEC champion is nothing to sneeze at. But this was a lot closer than the score indicated for a lot of the game, which I thought was interesting and obviously made for a better fan experience here.
Facts. Sarah, Andy said he was going to let you go on a rant concerning the Buckeyes and Texas. Your thoughts, your MVP, and just the recap of the game. And really, how excited are you concerning seeing the Buckeyes back in the national championship game?
I'm giddy. I'm like a giddy little girl. It's so bad. I've been I left work early to make sure I was able to watch the whole game. Everyone knew about it. I was so ready. I haven't been able to really be able to do this in how many years now. So it made me so excited and I'm so happy. And I agree with Andy. I think Texas really did put up a really great game plan against Ohio State. But the thing is that, you're going to take away Jeremiah Smith, but look at who else you have to throw it to. Carnell Tate, had one of his better games. And just to know that he's our third option and he was able to pull off some of those really great receptions really just gave me a lot of faith in that offense. And they didn't look that great this week. And you know what? It was amazing to watch that defense really win that game because the first 2 games, it was all offense. It was all us blowing the other team out. And those were 2 really good teams also. But I respect a lot of what Texas has done this season. I really, really like Sark. I think agree. I think they're going to be in the top of the SEC for quite a while. And I think Arch is going to put them in a whole nother level. But I am it was so fun to watch. And I'm just so happy the way it turned out because of the fact that it was the defense and it's the defense that has been there those 4 years that are the ones that pulled it off. To see Jack Sawyer do that to his old roommate, which I just love the little backstory, little sports extra stories. But it made me really, really just love this team again and just really seeing them really come together and just look so happy to play and to just be, all about the team. And I was even impressed with Will Howard. I thought, him finally running and pulling, he was so mad when he tripped, but at least it wasn't, the last second. So I was like, okay. But I think that it's going to be a tough matchup. I'm really, really excited to see what the man-to-man team does against them because that's what they're known for. But, Jeremiah Smith's always saying, if you don't double me. So I'm intrigued to see if they're going to. But I know we're not going to talk about that just yet. But just as a whole, I'm just extremely impressed. I'm even impressed by Day, and I know I'm not the highest person on him. I thought that he's really done a lot for this team, but this team also came together to do this. Like, they had the coaches meeting and then they had the players meeting, and they knew they had 4 games left, and they are playing like they know they have 4 games left and they're going to win. So it's just so refreshing to watch that out of them since that loss.
Yeah,
against
absolutely.
Michigan.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to keep on saying it. Jack Sawyer is a dog. There is nothing short of saying that he is a dog for Ohio State. Jack Sawyer, the play Jack Sawyer made, will be a top 5 Buckeye play in history. In history. Like, he's a legend forever at Ohio State. But it just wasn't Sawyer. I think that first of all, let me say this. Hats off to Texas. I talked a lot of mess on a lot of channels about Texas. But let's face it. All 4 Texas defensive backs are going to play in the NFL. I project 2 of them to be first-round picks. I project 1 of them to be a top 10 pick. Let's face it. Anthony Hill, number 0, next year's draft is a top 10 NFL pick. Number 11, Colin Simmons, the freshman, is a top 5 pick whenever he decides to come out. Number 88, their defensive tackle, is a first-round pick. They were loaded with defensive talent, NFL standard level, across the board for Texas. Offensively, we took away their weapons. Golden, Bolden, they had an injury, but Golden, Bolden, Wingo, they didn't do anything. And what did Steve Sarkisian do? He adjusted. He said, I'm going to kill you with a wheel route with these running backs with Blue and the other guy coming out of the backfield. And that's how they got their touchdowns. So I saw great adjustments. Conversely, with Texas having a great defense, Ohio State's offense showed that they could adjust when you take away our number 1 guy. I done snuck and I got a hookup with a hookup. I got access to that all 22. And I done sat back and watched like half of it already. The all 22 with Jeremiah Smith, he wasn't as doubled as much as people think, but what they did was they shadowed him. And what that means is the defensive back runs the route for you. Like, they know based on film study and how they watched it, which way he's going. And they ran the route for him. And I know that Chip Kelly had a conversation with Will Howard and told him, look, dude, whatever you do, don't throw it. Or if you see 7 and 4 double cover Jeremiah, don't throw it over there. That's why when he finally saw Jeremiah open and he threw the pick, he forced it to him, not realizing that the Texas linebacker was going to drop in coverage and didn't realize how fast he was. That guy covered 12 yards in like a second, so he was there. So that's why. But moving forward, I don't know if we're going to see that, but that's a whole nother conversation. But my shout out to my MVP of the game for Ohio State versus Texas is Will Howard. Texas was saying that Will Howard was going to turn into a pumpkin because he had never beat him. Yeah. Will Howard threw for more yards than Quinn Ewers. Will Howard had more rushing yards than Quinn Ewers. Will Howard almost threw for 300 yards. And from what I'm hearing out of Buckeye Nation right now, possibly either has a torn ligament or a broken bone in his opposite throwing hand. He had a lump the size of a super grapefruit on his hand. So this kid gutted it out the whole game, and nothing was going to let him out of there. And I know Jack Sawyer made the play of his life, but without Will Howard, we don't win that game. Great pass to Travion Henderson, reading the defense, throwing the ball to Carnell Tate, not forcing it to Mekabuka, definitely not forcing it to Jeremiah Smith. So Will Howard is my MVP. And this goes to all you national media, Acho, talking your mess saying that the worst quarterback out there was Will Howard remaining in the Final Four. How's that looking for you right now, buddy? How's that looking for you right now? And I hope you get it. Wherever you get your social media and all whatever else, Acho, talking all that mess, how's it look now? So congratulations to Will Howard. Congratulations to Texas. Congratulations to Notre Dame. And congratulations to Penn State. And we got a championship game. I just want to ask this last question before we go to commercial break. Do you two think and feel this was the best product that they could put on the field concerning the Final Four. Andy, I'll go to you real fast. Was this the best product?
I think at the end of the day, these were 4 of the teams playing the best football at the end of the year. Like, look, this is always going to be the challenge with the playoffs. The Oregon was the best team all year, but did not play their best football down the stretch, and we saw that. Notre Dame, again, I think was the most underrated team coming into the playoff, and them being in the final does feel like some vindication for coaching. I think that there's some quips that you could have made that maybe some other teams could have been in there, but at the end of the day, look, I don't think any of these 4 teams should have been left out of the playoff. I don't think any of these 4 teams, if you had given them a bye, if they had won their conference, or in Notre Dame's case, if they had been in a conference like the ACC and they'd won the ACC, like, look, I buy it. These were 4 really, really, really good teams. I don't have a problem with it, and I think the games itself kind of bared out that again, with Jack Sawyer aside, these were really evenly matched games going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. Sarah, you thinking the same, or you got something different?
No, I mean, I kind of agree. I think that I'm really happy that we ended up with the best 4 teams. I think that they were the 2 most entertaining games. Also, like, there wasn't a big blowout other than probably the end of the Texas-Arizona State game was probably the only other game I ever, like, really had no idea what was going to happen at the end. But yeah, overall, I really liked it. I think that there still needs to be some, maybe some reseeding and everything like that, because I would have liked to have seen Ohio State play Oregon a little later and maybe see Penn State have a little bit more of a challenge before Notre Dame. They probably might have had a better game. But overall, I think it's really been a really nice debut for the 12-team playoff. I think that it really has turned into, and I think the 2 best teams truly with as a whole, and they've looked the best since this started, are the 2 that are in the championship game. So in the end, yeah, I can't really have any super, super negative thing to say about it, because in the end, I think that they got the right choices for 1 and 2.
I'm feeling it. Absolutely. Hey, y'all, we got to pause for the cause. We got to get a quick commercial break. Word from our sponsors and partners. If you're watching this live on YouTube, stay tuned for the Level Up College Football podcast as we give a breakdown to the 2 teams that remain in the tournament. If you're listening to us live on audio, just give us a second, a word from our sponsors and partners, and we'll be right back with the Level Up College Football podcast. And we're back with the Level Up College Football podcast. In the building, Sarah C., Andy P., and Big G talking college football. What's up to my co-host, man? It's a great week. It's great to be back talking college football with you guys. Y'all, this week, it's a little different because we down to just like 1 game, right? So we're going to do a breakdown of what we see concerning the 2 teams versus us going through the game and just being quick. And we got to give homage to the teams. Because, listen, this is a 7 and an 8 seed that is actually in the college football championship. In any other year, they wouldn't even have had a shot. But this year, these are the 2 teams that are in. So I think we got to give homage where homage is due, break those teams down, go into the strengths and the weaknesses of the teams, and give them a fair shot. I don't think one team has a chance in hell, but I still think we got to give them a fair shot as far as breakdown and give them ways where they possibly could to win the game. So we're going to start with Notre Dame. What are Notre Dame's strengths? What are their weaknesses? How can they be exploited? How can they play to their strengths? We're going to start it off that way. Andy, we're going to go to you talking Notre Dame football right off the back. And what do you see, bro?
Yeah, I think that Notre Dame is one of these teams that we don't realize how banged up they actually are. Their number 1 defensive back has been out since October. They've got, they lost one of their starting defensive linemen in the first round of the playoff, and that was their 3rd defensive lineman that's gone down with major injury so far this season. They are a team that is deep and stacked and playing defense at a very high level, which should not be a forgotten about, because Marcus Freeman obviously has cut his teeth on the defensive side of the ball. Now, what I do think, if their strength is on the defensive side of the ball, their offense or their weakness has got to be on the offensive side of the ball. Riley Leonard has continued to be a weapon in the offense on the running game, And the passing attack continues to be a bit lackluster right now. I thought the offensive line for Notre Dame actually played pretty well. I know Riley Leonard was under a lot of pressure, but Penn State only managed 1 sack on him. I think the pressures probably show a little bit different story where he was under duress a lot more than the stats might show. But Riley Leonard's game is, feeling pressure rolling out and then having space out in front of him. And I thought that Notre Dame did a nice job of kind of scheming away from Abdul Carter and getting him those opportunities. He just wasn't converting. A lot of throws in the dirt, a lot of, I guess, in the turf, I should say, and a lot of just off-centered throws there. And he did, the picks were a big issue in this game and kept Penn State in the game for a while here.
Yeah,
so if I'm looking for like a big concern, like right now the line is Ohio State. It opened at 9.5. It's moved down to Ohio State 8.5. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Ohio State's got an elite defense, and Riley Leonard has not played elite in any one of Notre Dame's playoff games so far this season.
Yeah, facts, man. I don't disagree, man. And I like the fact that you pointed out strength versus weakness, offense versus defense. Sarah, your spin or your purview on Notre Dame, strengths and weaknesses, and where do you think they can actually excel going into the championship game?
I mean, the way that they can excel is on their weakness. They really need to see Riley Leonard, and I don't know if Love's going to be healthy. I don't know if they've really said much about it. I know that he wasn't as big of a factor in this game, but they're going to have to use them. They're going to have to use them as their strength. I mean, it was nice to see that at least Leonard at least had one wide receiver that he was getting to. I mean, versus, Penn State, who didn't even try to throw it to a wide receiver for an entire game. So, I mean, you got to really give them a little bit of credit for even just attempting that. I really want to say that that's probably still their biggest weakness, but it's a really hard thing. The thing that I've read and the things that I've been looking at, though, is that as a whole on both sides of the ball for Notre Dame is they're really, really good on 3rd down and 4th down conversions. They do really, really well in those parts of the game. So that's really going to be where I think that they're really going to have to show up and make sure that they're getting those conversions so that they can keep that possession, because that's really what ended up giving them that game, was that even though they didn't score as many, points that they probably could have, they had time of possession, I think, by a decent amount over Penn State, because they were holding on to the ball and they were converting and converting and converting. Yeah. So if Leonard can really stay mistake proof, he can really give a good fight. Now, I'm not saying like it's going to be like some new game for them and they're going to change their ways, because Freeman pretty much said they're not going to, because this is how they've been winning. Mm-hmm. But I think that if they can really, really prove that they can stay mistake proof and run the ball, keep that time of possession and show that, I think that's their biggest strength, because they've shown that they know how to play a full game. And I think that is probably one of the best strengths that you can really have at this point in time, is that you show up for all 60.
I mean, I don't disagree. I think that they have to rely on time of possession if they stand any chance to beat Ohio State. And in my opinion, too, also, I think their strength is their running backs. I think Love and Price are the best, not maybe best, the best 2-1-2 combination Ohio State has faced all year, but definitely in the top 5 1-2 punches. The issue is the health status of Notre Dame's offensive line. Antonio Knapp, their all-world freshman left tackle, has been ruled out for the remainder of the season. He's banged up bad. He's not going to play in the national championship game. Rocco Spindler, their right guard, is now deemed questionable at best, probably not going to play because of the injury he sustained against Penn State. So now you're going to go into this game missing your best offensive lineman, which is a true freshman, and your right guard, and you try to lean heavily on the run game. I don't see that happening. But I do know that that's Marcus Freeman's ideology. He definitely has a next man up mentality. He definitely will say, we have everything that we need to do to win in the locker room, so I'm not going to change the way I play. And so I think that's going to be an issue or a problem. Now, defensively, Notre Dame's got a couple of defensive backs that are decent. I definitely will say Xavier Watt is a good player. He will play at the next level of college football. But when you start looking around like, okay, can Jordan Clark actually be a good nickel back and hold Emeka Buka one-on-one? Can can Schuler, the other safety, actually contain and come up and stop Travion Henderson or Quinshawn Jenkins, because they're going to have to play a light box, because they're going to see 2x2 sets for Ohio State or 3x1, which is the 11 personnel. They're going to see that. And so how do you, when you get a light box, you just run the ball. So how is Notre Dame going to adjust defensively, especially considering their number one defensive player is out on crutches right now, number 99. I forget the kid's name, but he's going to play at the next level. He's just not going to be available for this game. So Notre Dame's strengths are that. And I will say this last strength for them, in my opinion. Once again, the coaching staff for Notre Dame is outstanding. Listen, the coaching staff for Notre Dame is already getting calls to go to the next level. They have an interview set up for Marcus Freeman for the Chicago Bears. It's done as soon as the season's over with, as far as him interviewing. And you better believe if he pulls out and goes pro, he's going to take some of those guys he's got with him in that locker room. So that's telling me that their coaching staff is superior, because NFL teams don't contact college teams for coaching roles unless they think you can handle it. Right there, Notre Dame to Chicago, hey, that's a big jump. But that's saying how good of a coach Marcus Freeman actually is. He has created a culture in Notre Dame that those kids believe they can run through a brick wall. And that matters in college football. If you believe in your coach, you will play to win. And so that matters. So I think that's a strength for Notre Dame, right? Now, weakness. Andy, your number one weakness for Notre Dame, bro. You already said it a little bit. I need you to go in depth.
Yeah. I think when we're looking at this game, Tim saying here, Marcus Freeman spoke today. He said he's not leaving Notre Dame. Heard it before. I'll believe it. I believe it when he's on the sideline and all the NFL jobs are filled, because, man, the money that they're throwing around these days is wild.
Facts.
When we're looking at Notre Dame, I think the biggest concern right now is Riley Leonard versus this Ohio State defense. And it's a lot to do with not anything up front. It's got a lot to do Ohio State has done in their secondary, specifically with their safety. So we already talked about it earlier. Notre Dame was doing a nice job of rolling Leonard out in order to avoid some of the Penn State edge rushers. And it worked to an extent, but obviously when you've got those elite edge rushers, it's hard. Ohio State has a great defensive front, but they don't have these edge rushers. We know that Jack Sawyer is a great linebacker, but really, the biggest plays for Ohio State in that fourth quarter were because of their safeties and their safeties' ability to run downhill and identify plays happening in the backfield, close that space, and wrap up tackles. And to me, that is going to be the Notre Dame offensive game plan here. They are going to attack Ohio State with throws out of the backfield. They're going to get the ball into their best playmakers, which are all the running backs. They're going to run lots of designed runs for Riley Leonard here. They usually run him 15 to 25 times a game. I think this is going to be higher on the 25 side, especially with the offensive line issues that you're looking at. And for me, I think Notre Dame is going to have time to really scheme up some good blocking for that front seven. So it's going to come down to that safety play. Can these guys help out and run support? Can they still be able to play 7-8 yards out off of the line and get into the backfield with efficiency? We saw it in the biggest moments against Texas that Ohio State was able to do it. But really, we haven't really talked about the Ohio State safeties as like a strong point of this defense. I think that that's really going to be key to this game when you're looking at what the Notre Dame's weakness is going to be, because if Ohio State plays the way that they have so far with those safeties, I do not think that Notre Dame can rely on those backfield plays in order to get big chunks of yards and relieve the pressure that Ohio State's been facing.
Big facts, man. I don't disagree. Sarah, if you got to pick a weakness for Notre Dame, what you saying it is?
I mean, it really pretty much touched on it. I mean, that's going to be that, making sure that the pressure is not getting to Leonard up front, or also if he doesn't have to pull off those throws. If he throws that one, interception to Caleb Downs, I'm pretty much sure that that's going to really put that downfield game out, and that they're going to have to just focus on that rushing attack. I mean, there's not really much to add. I think that most people know, where their weaknesses are and where their strengths are. It's not, and I think that the injuries, I think that might be their biggest weakness, truly, because those are going to be the things that they have to make sure that they're really going to be ready for, because even though, like, Andy said, maybe that front in Ohio State isn't that strong, but when you still have those guys there, I mean, you have some really, really just big dogs that are going to find a way to get to Leonard. He's a littler dude, and almost, I mean, I know he's not, little, but he's little in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I just think it's going to be based off of how that, really how Leonard plays, because he's played very well. He's made the smart decisions in the end. He does have those turnovers, but it's really going to be, does he continue to do that, or does he change his game throughout? So
Tim, this is a good point. You might want to consider a quarterback change somewhere during the game. And I think they're going to need all hands on deck to actually stop or give Ohio State a run. But listen, I'm going to tell you, I think Notre Dame's biggest weakness is this. I don't think that they have the ability to stop Ohio State's vertical passing game. I just don't think they do. Texas was able to do it because, like I said, they got multiple first-round draft picks. Notre Dame ain't got that. And when you line up Abuka, Tate, Jeremiah Smith, Gee Scott, and then you can run wheel routes out the backfield with Henderson and Junkins, man, it's going to be a long day at the office, man. You better make sure you get as much rest as you possibly can. You better make sure you ain't going to cramp up and get plenty of Gatorade and potassium in you, because you're going to be running for your life the whole game. And I just don't think Notre Dame can do it. I don't believe it. Some of the tape I've already seen. And like I said, I can't tell my source, but thank you for the all-22 film that I saw against Penn State and Notre Dame. Thank you for the all-22 film I saw Texas and Ohio State. I don't see them being able to stop them vertically. I saw it with my own eyes. I was like, they can't do it. So I think that's going to be the way that Ohio State is going to attack Notre Dame all day and night, vertically. And I think that's their weakness. And I think it'll pay dividends, because I really do believe we saw fast starts out of Ohio State with Tennessee, with Oregon. They tried it versus Texas, but Texas caught on quick. They went 7-0. I was like, uh-oh, here we go. But Texas slowed it down because of the NFL talent. I don't know if Notre Dame can do that. So I think their weakness is their ability to stop the vertical passing game. Final thoughts before we switch off of Ohio State, switch off of Notre Dame, go to Ohio State, and take a commercial break. Sarah, your final thoughts concerning Notre Dame.
I mean, I think it's going to be whether or not the strengths and the weaknesses. If Freeman can really call a good game and really just have that team believing, I think that they are going to put up a really good fight. I think the vertical game is definitely going to be hard, but they still are one of the best teams on man-to-man. So it's really going to be on how they are able to use that and really, really make sure and put that pressure on that passing game. So I'm really intrigued. I am excited for it. I may be biased on one side, but I think it's going to be one of the more entertaining games that we're going to get out of this. And I personally, Freeman has made me have a little bit of a soft spot for Notre Dame, which is just something I never thought I would ever say in my entire life. So that's really all it is. And I know that Riley Leonard is 6'4". He just looks tiny. He doesn't have that presence, is what I was going with. So
Facts. Andy, your final thoughts concerning Notre Dame.
Yeah, look, all credit to Notre Dame here. They had one of the worst losses that we've seen early this season. But again, if you looked at the numbers of that game, Notre Dame wins that game 98 times out of 100. It was just one of the 2 times that they lose it. And all season long, Notre Dame has been the better team demonstrably against every team that they've played. And they showed it through this playoff. They hung on, and they beat a Penn State team that gave them everything that they could handle. I'm really impressed with the coaching staff here. I think no matter what, Marcus Freeman has shown that he should be considered one of the elite coaches in college football right now. And I'm just really impressed holistically with this season that Notre Dame has had. And they, beginning of the year, Big G, you and me were giving Tim crap in the comments for us leaving out Notre Dame in a lot of the conversations about the elite programs, because there were the questions around Riley Leonard. There are the questions about whether a run and defense game can work in modern college football. And they're here because it does. And it's here because Riley Leonard has just made enough plays to make it work. All credit to Notre Dame. And I think that they are, if Marcus Freeman stays at Notre Dame is going to be a force to contend with for years to come.
Yeah, and I agree, man. But I see Tim out there trying to take cracks at the comments. He said, "You're right, G. Notre Dame didn't pay for their entire team like Texas and Ohio State." Oh, Tim, let's just state facts. Texas had the highest NIL at $22.8 million. Ohio State's NIL was at $20 million. But guess who was around $17.65 million? Notre Dame, including the highest NIL deal paid quarterback for the transition in Riley Leonard. That would be the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So there was about $2.5 million that separated NIL from Ohio State to Notre Dame. So it sounds like Notre Dame paid for their team, and also Buckeyes didn't pay for theirs. They just had to retain the talent they had because they was all going pro. And so it wasn't like they was out there recruiting the farm. When I checked the starting lineup for Ohio State versus Texas, there was 2 NIL starters, Will Howard and Caleb Downs. Everybody else was homegrown Buckeye. So stop with the madness saying that they paid for it. The issue is you didn't pay like we paid with $2.5 million, but you also paid for players just like we did because we're all in the NIL era. So I digress. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to pause for the cause. We're going to get to our next subject, which is the Ohio State Buckeyes, right after our commercial break on Fans First Sports Network, Level Up College Football Podcast. And we're back with the Level Up College Football Podcast live in the building. Thank you guys for rocking with us in the live chat. Thank you guys for rocking with us on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching us all week and all day long and all year long concerning college football right here on Fans First Sports Network. And I've got to say, definitely say thank you to my co-hosts, Sarah and Andy. Y'all have made it a great year and a spectacular year. All right, y'all, we're going to get to it. The team is favored. The team is basically a 10-point favorite right now going into the game. The Ohio State Buckeyes, strengths and weaknesses. Sarah, I'm going to start with you. What is your strengths concerning the Ohio State Buckeye team?
The strengths truly. I definitely think our defense has really just shown up, even with some of the injuries and on the offensive line. Also, just injuries as a whole is going to be some of the issues that we're going to have in this game. And I think that has to do with a lot of the added games that they've had this season. But I think that their strength is just their team, that they have truly bought in as a team, that I just never seen them act like this, even prior to and during the regular season. What they have done since that Michigan loss has just really, really come together. And I'm just highly impressed by everybody. Now, you know what? I'm being, more of the storyline person. I enjoy that a lot. That's what got me into sports in the end. But I just really find that to be the more interesting. Our offense is going to be in my opinion, is our strength. We have the 3 best wide receivers in this game. I think we have the better quarterback. I think that he's really, really shown that he can pass that ball and can still actually get out and run. That's what he was known for in Kansas State. So he kind of has that in his back pocket. And I'm really, I'm excited to see what Chip Kelly has done. I think Chip Kelly has played a much better game plan since these playoffs. Prior, I think that he's calling a lot better plays. He's using a lot more different schemes. I think that the way that we've been using our running backs in the playoffs has been a much better game plan. I love the fact that we're really using, at least Henderson in the passing game a little bit in those short passes. That was probably one of the best play calls I've seen in a long time from Chip Kelly. Just that was the smartest move, that they knew exactly where that defense had that little bit of weakness, and he used it. And that's what he's going to do in this game. It might take him a minute, but I think that Chip Kelly has a lot to prove out of this, in my opinion. And I think that he might be that little bit of a factor that's really going to make this be a highly entertaining game and really show that Ohio State offense is not just talented, but can play hard and play well together.
Feeling it. I feel it, man. I don't disagree with any of those points. Andy, man, your thoughts about the Buckeyes? Man, you're a Syracuse fan, and we know that. But, bro, you've done some in-depth analysis with all college football teams and them schematically, what they're able to do, what their strengths is. So I just need you to bring it on home concerning the strengths for the Ohio State Buckeyes, bro.
Yeah, I think there's a lot worthy of talking about on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, you've got Jeremiah Smith, you've got Emeka Ibuka, you've got Travion Henderson. These are just household names at this point, but I kind of talked about it during the Notre Dame segment of this. I genuinely think that the defense is underrated, if that's possible, just because before this Texas game, like, I don't think Jack Sawyer or anybody on the defensive side of the ball was a household name, but in S&P Plus, which again is my preferred metric, predictive ESPN metric that they have, Ohio State was the number one team for most of the season. But most importantly, they've been the number one defense by a pretty significant factor for the entirety of this season. This defense has been the strongest unit in the losses that Ohio State has had. The Oregon loss, the defense obviously didn't cover itself in glory, but it's not like the defense completely lost that game. They still put the ball back in the hands of the Ohio State offense to win the game. The Michigan game is, we can talk about that all we want to, but like, that was offensive struggles. The defense played a great game when they needed to. And so when I look at this game in particular, when you're going to go up against a coach that wants to play hard-nosed, in-your-face, physical football, the defense is really going to need to step up, and the defense has stepped up. They went up against the best offensive coaching mind in college, in my opinion, and Steve Sarkisian, and they really shut down Texas. They limited the number of explosive plays. They made the biggest defensive plays when it mattered. I just think when you're looking at this Ohio State team, in almost every scenario that Notre Dame makes this game competitive, it relies on Ohio State's defense just not showing up. And I just don't think that that's going to happen because it hasn't happened all season long.
Yeah. Listen, man, there's a lot of strengths around Ohio State's football team, in my opinion. I mean, you start talking about number one wide receiver room, you're probably talking about number one and number two running back room. You're probably talking about number one and number two defensive line room. You're probably talking about top five linebacker room. I think the strength of Ohio State going into this game is, and Andy, you talked about it, the improved play of the secondary for Ohio State. The safeties, Jordan Hancock, Caleb Downs, Lathan Ransom, that's the best 1-2-3 combination in all of college football, right? These guys go downhill real fast, and they go down here aggressively. People talked about in the Texas game, why didn't they bring Arch Manning back in the game on 1st and goal with the 1? You want to know the truth why? Because they knocked him out of the game. They messed up his shoulder. He was in concussion protocol. It's going to come out. Trust me, I already got feet on the ground and know. And he was unavailable. They took a helmet from him. So he couldn't play. It was over. That's why they didn't bring him back in. Oh, guess what they did to Jones, the running back for Oregon, the game before that? They knocked his behind out of the game. Guess what they did to Sampson, the running back for Tennessee? And oh, by the way, was the SEC Player of the Year the game before that. They knocked him out of the game. I still don't think Nico's gotten over his concussion. They put a full crack in that boy's helmet. So these guys are running downhill real hard and real fast. And it's hurting other teams' opposing players. I don't know if you saw that consistently all year long from Ohio State's defense. And I think that's the transition that's made their defense actually the number one defense in the country. The way that the safeties attack the play downfield, downhill, and just come after whoever's coming after, they could care less of what's going on, especially if you don't have a vertical threat. They read their keys, and they're like, okay, go get the ball. And I think that's what makes all the difference in the world. And I'm telling you, Lathan Ransom is playing like a man possessed. He's playing like his whole life is on the line. And I'm digging that from the Ohio State standpoint. And I think that is their biggest strength. Like I said, I could go all day and night and talk about it. But the defensive backs, that three-man safety combination is the real deal. All right, so now we got to be objective. You know, we have to just be honest and tell the truth. What do you think is the weakness for Ohio State? Andy, I'm going to talk with you first, man, and you tell me what the weakness is for the Buckeyes.
I mean, we've kind of talked about it all show here with Notre Dame as well. There are injuries here. There are injuries on both Notre Dame and there's injuries on Ohio State. This offensive line has been mixing and matching for the last few weeks. and has really been the one area of improvement and opportunity for the Fighting Irish, or for Ohio State, much like it is for the Fighting Irish. Because at the end of the day, I kind of talked about it earlier, the recipe for Notre Dame winning this game is that they're able to punch Ohio State in the mouth early and then make them play from behind, make Will Howard make plays consistently, take away the threat of the running game in these light boxes. And the only way you can do that is by getting pressure with less guys. And that usually requires an elite defensive front and a not so great offensive line. And so when we look at Ohio State right now, Notre Dame is able to bring a really solid to elite front four. Like, they were able to get into the backfield against Penn State. What is Ohio State's offensive line better than Penn State's offensive line? Fully healthy? Absolutely. Banged up, dealing with players that are maybe playing less than ideal circumstances, playing with guys that you don't typically play with in a brand new environment, in a national title game where the stakes are raised. Maybe you have an opportunity now to attack Ohio State's only weakness, which is really along that offensive line that is just so banged up.
I agree, man. I agree that we've had inspired play, but you got to remember, you got two new starters out there and a guy who's truly playing out of position, and Donovan Jackson. You're absolutely correct. Sarah, your weaknesses for the Buckeyes.
Kind of to play along with Andy, I definitely think that is one of the biggest factors. And I think that also plays into when they do penalties. Penalties were becoming quite an issue in part of the Texas game. They were making some really, really sloppy plays. Henderson did, had that unsportsmanlike. So I think that, what they need to walk into this game being a little bit more buttoned up when it comes to those types of things, because they don't have as much room. I think that they had a little bit more room against Texas. I think that Notre Dame's going to come in there and they're going to fight. Like I've been saying this, that team just seems to have like a full, I'm in for that whole 60. Like we are, until that clock hits all the zeros, we will believe that we are going to win this game. And I think that is something that Ohio State just has to really make sure and show up early and just not make the stupid and undisciplined mistakes early. And that sometimes is where I think that all season, that's always been my biggest issue. And that's why I've been so hard on Day, is because I think that sometimes has a lot to do with your coaching. But I think that, this last game was probably the most that I've seen out of them. And I was really surprised, especially for Henderson. Like that was just not something that I'm used to ever seeing him do. So I think that is probably a slight weakness, in the sense that they kind of let some things get to them a little bit too much. And then that causes them to take really, really bad penalties. So I hope that, they can really just make sure that they're not getting into, Notre Dame's not getting into their head. And then the pressure on Will Howard is keep Will Howard upright, make sure that he's, not getting all that pressure. And that's going to have to be on that offensive line. And that's going to be hard on them. But I think that, they've all shown that they can do it. So I'm very interested to just see how they are able to do it on that game day. I think it's going to be, like I said, I'm just a giddy little girl.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I get it. I get it. Like a kid at the candy store. I totally get it, man. Hey, listen, this is a good question by B Dirt running through the jungle, man. Thank you for it. He said, gee, if they're so good at all those unbeatables, then how do they have 2 losses in your opinion? Serious question, not trolling. That's actually a very good question. B Dirt, this question can be answered very simple. Ryan Day. Ryan Day and his stubbornness and unwillingness to get out of the way and allow his coordinators to coordinate and allow his players to play. It's obvious. Michigan owns them. You can't deny it. He's 0-4 the last 4 games against Michigan. He was tight as all get up. And so a tight coach will make you lose. How did he lose against Oregon? He was a little tight out there, and he was really scared to just let Jeremiah Smith be Jeremiah Smith. He wanted to play close to the vest, and he didn't want to allow Larry Johnson and Jim Knowles to dial up pressure on Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon, because he was scared to get hurt for the big play. Ultimately, it came back to bite him. Now, did he avenge it? Yes. And I think how he did that is he got out of his way. He is now allowing his coaches to coach. He's now allowing his coordinators to coordinate, and he's now allowing his players to play. And that makes all the difference. Ryan Day had to learn to become a CEO like an Urban Meyer, like a Nick Saban, like these coaches that have won multiple championships. And he had to learn it the hard way. Hopefully he'll stay that way and he won't get in his way to complete the mission and win the national championship game. But absolutely, that is the weakness for Ohio State. The weakness for Ohio State is Ryan Day getting in his own way. Allow Jim Knowles, allow Chip Kelly to do what they needed to do. And once they do that, they're really unstoppable, in my opinion. All right, y'all, we're to the end part, but we're just going to do a little slight prediction. We're not going to give full game scores because, well, yes, we are, because we've already decided that come next week, Tuesday, we're going to do a recap after the game and talk about what we saw and all whatever else. So we're going to give you the preview and give you the predictions early for the Natty, not considering that we don't know injury reports and all whatever else. So, Andy, I'm going to go to you, bro. Who you got and why you got them to win and what's your score, man?
Yeah, I think, honestly, you look at this any way that I like to look at the games. You look at the betting lines, you look at the numbers. It's just favoring Ohio State by so much. Ohio State is the better team on paper. Ohio State has put together the better postseason to date right now. I think that I'm looking at Ohio State and saying that there are far more ways for this game to break close for Ohio State, and there's also a lot more ways for this game to break big for Ohio State than there are for Notre Dame to even win this game. And so for me, I really like Ohio State in this game. I like them to cover the spread. I actually think that they're going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. I'm going to pick Ohio State to win this game 35-10, and I think it is an absolute coronation for a program that has spent the last better part of a decade trying to get back to this pinnacle. And they're finally doing it in a season that, again, we all kind of wrote them off because of a 1-point loss on the road in a new environment to a new conference foe and to a rivalry game where their coaching staff just got stupid.
Facts. I understand. Sarah, your prediction for the Natty, who you got and what's your score?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious on who I got. But I don't think it's going to be as wide open as Andy thinks. I talk a little bit higher on Notre Dame. Like I said, I'm just a little bit more impressed than I thought I would ever be by a team that I've grew up never liking. So it's been something new to me. But I think they're going to play a close game. I think Ohio State's going to pull it off in the end like they did this past week. I think that this is just going to give them a nice little fight, and then they're really going to feel this win. I think it's going to be 28-21. I think it's going to be a late time touchdown. I think that it's going to be close for a while, and I want it to be. I want it to be that kind of game. I'm so excited for that type of game. I think it would be make a really great national championship. So that's where I'm at. But yeah, definitely Ohio State winning.
I understand it. So listen, before I give my score and my prediction, I got to take you guys. I got to do a little history lesson with you, and I'm just going to tell the truth. Right. I remember back in the 2023 season, there was some chatter coming out of South Bend, Indiana. Started with a previous coach by the name of Lou Holtz. Went on to the field with the players and the current coaching staff. They were calling, the narrative was Ohio State soft. The narrative, Ryan Day soft. The narrative was that Ohio State can't win big games and you can't be born on third base to expect to win and all this, that, and this. I remember all of that. Most Buckeye fans do remember all of that, right? Now, whether you believe it or not, that had a direct effect on the psyche of this team because those kids that are now seniors were sophomores. Those kids are the same kids that went 0-4 against Michigan because Michigan carried that ideology into those Ohio State games and had better personnel, had NFL talent all over the place, the canvas. Let's just face it. Michigan has had NFL talent for 2 years in a row. They're probably going to have 2 top 10 picks this year, let alone probably 3 in the top 15. Michigan's got some serious dogs over there. So, but the narrative behind all of this was behind Notre Dame. saying that Ohio State's soft. Like I said, those kids were sophomores. Let's fast forward 2 years later. These same kids who lost 0-4, remember what you said. They do. They hear the chatter that's coming out of the locker room right now from your running back, Love, who's saying, we want to play Ohio State. Be careful what you ask for, dog, because these kids remember all of that. And Ryan Day, he ain't got nothing to prove right now. Ryan Day's just going to let his dudes do what they got to do and let the field talk for itself. He's not calling no plays. He's not walking around with his mouth covered like this, and you can't see. He's not doing all that. He's letting his guys do what they're supposed to do. So I'm telling you, when you talk about motivation, it's serious motivation based on that. And oh, by the way, this is also the Notre Dame team that talks mess in our own state. Because for you guys that don't know that watch us, there's damn near as many Notre Dame fans in Ohio as there is Ohio State fans. There is. And they talk big mess, right? So just remember all the last times that we done beat the brake shoes off of you, Notre Dame. It ain't never really been close except for it was a couple of years ago. Every time we beat you so bad you don't want to play us no more. You take us off your schedule. That's how bad we smack you. So guess what? Get ready for the smackdown. Ohio State 42, Notre Dame 17. Jeremiah Smith 150 and 2 tutties, and Ryan Day's not calling off the dogs. He's not calling it off, Notre Dame. He remembers. Trust me, I got feet on the ground down there. I know what them boys is talking about. They want you more than anybody. They actually want you more than they wanted Oregon. They actually want you more than they wanted Texas. They trying to show the world you started this mess, and we're going to end it right here on the field in 2025 and show you that you don't belong on the same field with us. Ohio State 42, Notre Dame 17. It's going to get ugly. And oh, by the way, if Riley Leonard runs the ball for more than 15 times, he won't finish the game. They're going to knock him out of the game. It's in the game plan. Trust me, it's in the game plan. They're trying to make a point, and they're going to make the point. Buckeyes went big, 42-17, Ohio State. All right, y'all, my final thoughts, final stuff you got to say before we get off the podcast. Sarah, I'm going to start with you.
I'm so excited to make it to the end of the college football playoffs. I'm so excited to make it to the end of the season. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned so much from you guys about college football, and I've just enjoyed it. It's really expanded my football knowledge and just my football love. So it's been a really great time. I can't wait for Monday. It's going to be a blast, and I'm hoping to pop some champagne at the end.
Facts. I feel you. Andy, man, your final thoughts, man, as we get off, because this is the last time we meet before the finality of the national championship game.
Yeah, look, I think the community that we've got around this show has been great. I'm loving everybody in the chat, and I'm loving that if things don't play out the way that Big G and I think, Tim is going to be having a field day next week in the chats. But that's what makes this show great. That's what makes this community great. And look, you got to play the game. Can't play the games on paper. Paper's right a lot. But we'll see if Monday night's the night that Paper's right, or if Notre Dame can pull the upset here.
Facts, absolutely. Thank all you guys again for rocking with us all season, man. We appreciate it. We made it to an end of another great season, and we wouldn't have made it this far if it was not for you guys. So we appreciate everybody that rocks with us live on YouTube, everybody that listens to the audio feedback or the audio playback for the podcast. We appreciate it, man. As for me, Big G, as for my partners in crime, Andy P and Sarah C, we appreciate all you guys on the Level Up College Football Podcast on Fans First Sports Network. We're looking forward to see you next Tuesday as we close out the 2025 season for college football. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week. We'll holla. Peace.